Welcome back to Operation Evil. This is episode 145, Eastburn Family Murders. I'm your host, Nyoka, and today Heather is joining me once again to help me out with giving you guys this case that actually she found and brought it to my attention. It's very interesting. But before we do that, I just want to, as always, thank you so much for being here. And thank you guys for those who are listening, who keep coming back to listen. Any new listeners, I'm just very appreciative of everyone. Thank you so much. And as always, listener discretion is advised. But Heather, you got anything you want to say?
Hi, friends.
Hi, friends. All right.
Ace really caught my attention, not as far as the heinous acts that occurred, but because of the criminal justice process that happens along this journey during this case. So it really caught my attention of how when the military gets involved, things are a little bit different.
Yes, because there's this thing called Double Jeopardy. Remember the movie on that
I
back in the
love
day?
Ashley Judd. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. There's just a lot of things that go on, and she's right. This is definitely an interesting one to even talk about because of all these different factors that go into it. I'm going to start the story off with when this case was discovered, which was on Sunday, May 12th, 1985, around 1 p.m., when a baby's cries led police to the bodies of 32-year-old Catherine Eastburn, 5-year-old Kara Eastburn, and 3-year-old Aaron Eastburn. Their bodies were discovered when a sheriff's deputy climbed through a window of the locked house. 18-month-old Jana, is it Jana?
I think so. I
It's
watched
Jana. Yeah.
there is, and not to interrupt, but there is a movie. It's an older one. It came out not too long after this, and I almost want to say it was like Hallmark Channel-y. Not, I mean, not Hallmark Channel as far as that,
Right.
but I can't think of like what it was on. But it's you can tell it's very 80s and 90s done. Uh,
Oh.
Ricky Schroeder plays in it. I thought I
Oh.
saw the link.
You might have. You might
Hmm.
have. I don't remember.
It does, yeah.
Well, there's
I
something if you guys want to watch the case afterwards.
can
I
send
need
you.
to watch that. I didn't watch it.
Yeah, if you want, I'll send you the link again or whatever. I think it's just on YouTube. I think I forgot what it was called.
Yeah,
I have to look it up and send it to you. Put in the show notes.
definitely. So the sheriff climbed through the window of the locked house when 18-month-old Jana was crying so much that it alerted the neighbors. And she was found, luckily unharmed in her crib, but that poor baby was left alone with her mother and sister's bodies for 2 days. Harold Little, which was a spokesman for the Cumberland County Sheriff's Department, said investigators believe the three had been dead since Thursday. He also, at this time it's Sunday, so he also refused to confirm news reports that the victims' throats had been slashed. He said that they were awaiting autopsy results from the North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office in Chapel Hill. Now, the Eastburns babysitter, 15-year-old Julie, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name, she said that Catherine had gotten a bunch of crank phone calls since her husband left for Alabama. She said, quote, "It really kind of worries me because the caller says really obscene things. A man called and asked, 'How is the most gorgeous girl on the Summerhill Road?'" End quote. That is pretty freaky. And you
Yeah,
gotta think, this is the middle 80s time period. There's no,
caller ID.
yes, there's no caller ID. So it's not like, I mean, this is creepy. This is like,
And when the
mm,
phone yesterday,
right.
it could have been anybody. We
Yeah.
did a lot of telemarketing.
It's like, is it an adult? Is it a teenager? Is it for real? Is it not? I don't know. Everything is just much scarier than when you didn't know who was calling. So
And
it also ruined our prank phone calls as children when we figured out that they knew who was calling.
What was the *67 when you could call back a number?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you hide your own and marks it private or something. There you go, kids. *67. So her
Grew up
husband was an Air Force captain. His name was Gary Eastburn. He was 36 years old and a chief of air traffic control at Pope Air Force Base. He was away for an 8-week Squadron Officers School for Career Junior Officers at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery. And at the time of the murders, he had been gone for about 4 or 5 weeks. On the day they discovered the bodies, a neighbor, Jeanette, reported to authorities that she had been hearing the baby cry off and on for the last 3 days. Wow. How
I
many days did it take for her to call? I don't know.
been to that there was thing like when they interview like, well, we haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah. Red
Then
flags. Her husband, Robert, at least I assume that's her husband, he said that he last saw Catherine and her children about 7:30 p.m. on Thursday night when they visited his home to borrow some milk because people still did that back then. They
right.
borrowed milk and sugar. Meanwhile, Gary, the husband who's been gone for 4 or 5 weeks, he calls the Cumberland County Sheriff's Department from Alabama on Saturday to ask for help contacting his wife because he couldn't get a hold of her by phone. So a deputy shows up at the home on Saturday night, knocks on the door, didn't get an answer, leaves a note asking Catherine to call her husband in Alabama. When a deputy returned the next day after being alerted by the neighbors who kept hearing the baby cry, they finally climbed through the window and emerged a short time later with a handkerchief in front of his face, looking like he was going to be sick. The Fayetteville Observer reported that Catherine's nude body and the body of her 3-year-old daughter were found in the master bedroom. The newspaper said that the other daughter was found in another bedroom and the baby in a crib in the third bedroom. The children were fully clothed. Now, Mr. Little said that there were signs of a struggle in the living room, but it wasn't in disarray. And the neighbors who alerted the police said that there was no sign of forced entry to the home. Additionally, Mr. Little said that unfortunately at the time, they did not have a motive or a suspect. The husband, Gary, was flown out that night back home and was to be questioned by detectives. The following day, a 7-member team from the State Bureau of Investigation, including 2 chemists, were on the scene. Fingerprints were found, and chemicals plus lighting techniques showed that bloodshed around the house. Now, I want to mention a little bit about what the family was like. The neighbors said that the family was quiet and the couple was friendly. And they said the couple took excellent care of their 3 daughters, but pretty much kept to themselves. Another neighbor across the street said that his grandson often played with Kara, one of the daughters, and that Catherine took fantastic care of her children. So on Wednesday, May 15th, authorities questioned a man who bought a dog from a Fayetteville family 2 days before the family was murdered in their home. Mr. Little said that he's not a suspect, just somebody they had to speak to see if he saw anything unusual or maybe get leads off of what he says. Earlier Wednesday, the department issued an appeal for a man who drove a white Chevrolet Chevette to,
Yes.
to the Eastburn home on May 7th and bought an English setter dog from Catherine. This is already suspicious, right?
Right. So I think they were planning on being transferred with her husband, and knew that they were moving, and where they had to go for a short period of time, they couldn't have pets. I'd read that. So that's why they were having to rehome their fur buddy.
Ooh. I mean, just think you're just trying to rehome your dog, and then we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, yeah. 2 days after that visit, the family was murdered, and Catherine had been raped, and the younger daughter was nearly decapitated. So sad.
so
Now, the man questions, dressed in camouflage, fate
fatigue.
fatigues. Thank you. Oh my God.
You're fine.
Heard the appeal on the news and came to the sheriff's department with his wife and baby about 1 p.m. and stayed until he was released at 7 p.m. He refused to speak to reporters. However, they said at one point the man entered a bathroom to wash what appeared to be fingerprint ink off of his hands. Good observation.
That is.
Catherine Eastburn had written a letter to her mother-in-law saying that she had met a nice man, quotes around that, nice man, who would provide a home for the dog Dixie. She said the man was to visit the home and determine if the dog was compatible with his. The Eastburn family was being transferred to England and couldn't keep the dog.
That's an
Also, I should mention the husband was ruled out as a suspect at this point. And he also walked around the house with detectives to see if he can help them find out anything. What were you going to say?
oh no, just like I mean that's a reasonable request if you're,
Yeah,
having a dog to see that it's going to be compatible with a dog that you already have. I mean that's reasonable. And like yeah,
absolutely.
I mean he was smoozing.
Yeah, for sure. So the man they questioned was 27-year-old Sergeant Timothy Bailey Hennis, who was a member of the 600th Quartermaster Company and a parachute rigger at Fort Bragg, and they ended up arresting and charging him with 3 counts of murder and sexual assault on May 16th. He could face the death penalty if convicted of first-degree murder. During a 5-minute first appearance hearing with the district judge Lacey Hare, he replied, "Yes, sir," when asked if he understood the charges. An affidavit submitted by Detective Jack Watts states that a witness, Patrick Cohn, saw a man answering Hennis's description, left the front of the Eastburn home at 3:30 a.m. on Friday, May 10th. That's suspicious. Patrick Cohn picked Hennis from a photographic lineup and also identified his car as one he saw parked near the Eastburn home. An affidavit said Hennis told detectives he went to the Eastburn home on Tuesday, May 7th, after reading an advertisement in which Miss Eastburn had offered to give the dog to someone who would give the animal a good home. He said that the only other contact he had with Miss Eastburn was on Thursday night at about 8:45 p.m. when she called his house to inquire about the condition of the dog.
This is it. Yeah.
Also, yeah,
Also, sorry. Also, pre Craigslist stalk.
yes,
You know what I mean?
that
Like,
reminded me of the Craigslist killer that I covered
yeah,
before. It is
that's
scary.
it is. It's scary. Anytime, that's what I say. Make your exchanges in a public place or at a police department. Right.
Absolutely.
This was way before.
Especially a police department.
This was even before the internet. So
Yeah, yeah, super freaky. So the affidavit said that the weapon used to kill Catherine and the girls had a single-edged knife, 2 to 4 inches long. Investigators looked for items at the Hennis home that Eastburn said were missing from his house, as well as a green plastic garbage bag with blood stains, a dark knit toboggan, and blood-stained clothing. It didn't say what was found at the home. In July, Hennis was denied bond. His defense attorney, Gerald Beaver, told the court that no blood was found on his jacket, shoes, or car, and that his blood, hair, and fingerprints failed to match samples found in the Eastburn home. He said, quote, "You must balance this horrible crime against the minimal evidence of guilt and the need of the defendant to assist in his defense and support his family," end quote. Assistant District Attorney Bill Van Story who said that he will seek the death penalty, passed several pictures of the crime scene to the judge, saying that he should take the nature of the crimes into account when considering bail. He said, quote, "Pictures are worth 1,000 words," end quote. Several of Hennis's co-workers and family members attended the bond hearing and testified as character witnesses. Although he was denied bond at that time, fast forward to December, and he was granted a $100,000 bond from the same judge.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now this is where it gets crazy.
Yes. So I'm going to give a little bit more of a background on Timothy, Mr. Hennis.
Yes.
I tried to find any solid evidence that he may or may not have been abusive to his wife or his family, and I could not find anything on that.
What a great thought. Never occurred to me.
I was like, wonder if he had any priors or anything like that, and I couldn't find any. So if I missed it and somebody else knows this story and knows that, please feel free to correct me.
Yeah, let
Um,
us know.
yeah. So he was born February 24th, 1958 in Rochester, Minnesota. Sorry, I have to say it like that.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Shout out to my Minnesota friends. All right. All right. He grew up in Rochester, Minnesota with a father, Robert Hennis. It didn't say much about his mother. I couldn't even find her name. And his dad worked as a manager for IBM in the 70s. So as IBM was coming up, that's where his dad worked. They had moved to Rochester in 1963 when Timothy was about 5 years old. And it said that there's a book out. I didn't read the book. I just read what it said about the book. So it said that he may have been adopted when he was really young, because his biological parents had divorced. But he was raised in what was described as a loving household. And according to this, he was a model child. He did well in school and got along with his friends at school. He graduated from Mayo High School in Rochester in 1976. And after high school, he worked locally. It doesn't really say where. And then he joined the Army, the United States Army, in 1980. In 1985, he was married to his wife, Angela, and they had a daughter by this time. And now he was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, working as a parachute rigger. At the time of the murders, he was 27 years old. So back to the investigators and some of the stuff that was found as evidence. So they found missing items. They found cash, an ATM card, and the family's ATM pin on a piece of paper. And this was used to withdraw money after the murders. So the ATM card was used to withdraw the exact amount that Hennis needed to pay his house payment.
That is
Gary,
dumb.
yeah, let's get out my probably, who knows how much, I forgot what it was, $100.
$150.
Yeah. So Gary Eastburn, the husband of the deceased, told the police several times these things were missing from the home, including an envelope of cash and the ATM card, as well as the password. The police said the ATM card was used to withdraw $150 twice over 2 days. So prosecutors said that Hennis was behind on his rent, which was about $300, and he paid the rent the Monday after the killings. A woman who used the same bank ATM shortly after the Eastburn's ATM card was used told investigators she saw a man nearby matching Hennis's description. All right, so the first time he was on trial was the summer of 1986, and this was in Cumberland County, North Carolina. Excuse me, and the trial began on March 27th, and he pled not guilty. Imagine that.
Of course, they all do.
Yeah. And in the first trial, he was convicted of the murders July 8th, 1986, in the Cumberland County Supreme Court. It's in the Fayetteville area. Prosecutors presented the case, and the motive was the claim was it was rooted on a rejected sexual advance, circumstantial links to missing ATM transactions, and eyewitness accounts placing the man matching his description nearby all the places. And like you said, graphic crime scene photos were shown to the court and to the jury. So the jury deliberated for 10 hours.
Hmm.
Yeah. So they took their time.
Yeah, they
And
did.
they found him guilty on all the counts, including first-degree murder and rape. And he was sentenced to death and sent to Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina. A mysterious / anonymous postcard arrived the day of his sentencing, and it read, "Dear Mr. Hennis, I did the crime. I murdered the Eastburns. Sorry you're doing the time. I'll be safely out of North Carolina when you read this. Thanks, Mr. X."
Hmm.
That's funny because the fires, they had a mysterious postcard.
Whoa.
I was like reading that. I was like, oh. So then his second trial began in April of 1989. So he appealed. And this was also in Cumberland County, North Carolina. The North Carolina Supreme Court overturned his convictions, ruling that the prosecution improper prejudice in the evidence in his trial. So the retrial defense attorneys dismantled the key eyewitnesses' testimony and introduced new witness accounts, including someone seen walking in the neighborhood who bore a resemblance to Hennis. So after 3 weeks of testimony and 2 days of deliberation, the jury unanimously acquitted Hennis of all charges.
What?
So now they let him go.
No.
Yeah. So because of the Fifth Amendment, here we go, and the double jeopardy protection, meaning that if you're tried of murder and you are seen as innocent, then you cannot be charged for that murder again. All right, so North Carolina cannot try him again for the same charges. But this isn't the end of the story. Dun, dun, dun. So from 1989 to 2004, Mr. Hennis is living his life. He went back into the United States Army. He served in the Gulf War and some other deployments. So he served our country. He rose up through the ranks and then he retired honorably, can't say that, as a master sergeant in 2004. Fast forward to 2006. They have a DNA breakthrough.
Yes.
Thank you, DNA. So in June of 2006, some advanced DNA testing on a vaginal swab taken from Catherine Eastburn in 1985, which was previously unanalyzable due to the technological limits linked to Timothy Hennis's extremely high statistical certainty. So, because military jurisdiction is separate under the dual sovereignty doctrine, and the U.S. Army can bring charges even after a civilian is acquitted.
Wow, this is a lot of moving pieces.
Yes, it is. So, somebody's up there taking the DNA samples and comes back across this case, and then I guess they somehow get his DNA and then they match it up. So a third trial, which is a court-martial trial, takes place from March to April of 2010. So even after they got the DNA sample in 2006 and were able to analyze it, this trial didn't go until 2010. And this was also in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. On March 17th, 2010, nearly 25 years after these murders, Hennis's court-martial begins in Fort Bragg. So this is under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Prosecutors centered their case on this new DNA evidence that was unavailable decades before. The defense challenged forensic and hair and fiber evidence and argued contamination. Of course they do.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's 25 years old, right? Where's it been all this time? So on April 3rd, after 3 hours of deliberation, so only 3 hours this time, a panel of 14 military officers and NCOs, or non-commissioned officers of senior enlisted service members in the military who hold leadership training and management responsibilities, acting as crucial link between junior enlisted personnel and commissioned officers. Whew, that's what an NCO is.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. They unanimously found him guilty of 3 counts of premeditated murder.
Good.
So on April 15th, 2010, the court martial panel recommended the death penalty along with a dishonorable discharge and reduction in rank. Hennis was incarcerated at the U.S. Disciplinary Barracks of Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, where he is still there today. The Army had actually recalled Hennis to active duty in 2006 to specifically so he could be prosecuted under this code, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, for crimes that occurred while he was in the military. Sneaky.
That is.
So this was legally permissible under the dual sovereignty doctrine of federal/military and state courts in separate jurisdictions. So prosecuting him in the military court did not violate his double jeopardy protections.
Good.
But there were still many unanswered questions. Like there was tons of physical evidence in the house that they can't explain. Like you said, like other people's DNA and hair. And the hair was found in the Eastburn's bed that wasn't Hennis's, it wasn't Gary's, it wasn't Catherine's. So did he plant this evidence thinking he was going to get away? Or was there actually a Mr. X? We don't know. Was there a second party? Unidentified DNA, which after they did was still found under Catherine's fingernails. Yeah. So we should be running DNA against our own databases. Winsett was I think he was a military prosecutor, I think. He said we should be running this against our own databases. Let's find out what happened. It's likely will be a lifetime before the final page of this story is written in this bizarre murder mystery. And after the appeals process was over, Hennis cannot be executed without presidential approval. In recent years, this hasn't happened very often, and the U.S. military has not executed anyone in its ranks since 1961.
Wow. I'm glad that this case haunted him for 25 plus years.
Yeah, and I think he thought he was getting away with, because they let him back in the military. They, gave him jobs, they gave him ranks, and then bam.
Awful.
So yeah.
What an awful thing, especially those kids.
Especially the kids. There is a couple things on Jana, like where is she now and all that stuff, but I really didn't read up on a lot of it.
Hopefully she's okay.
I think she did have the survivor guilt for a while. I read a little something on that, but not a lot.
I'm honestly surprised they let her live.
Yeah, like why murder 3 and then leave the little baby? I guess because she couldn't say anything.
I guess.
I don't know. But you think if you're going with intent to kill, and it really, I searched too and tried to find if like he ever gave a reason of why, and the only thing that they can think is that, like it said, when he went to see her about the dog, that he was making sexual advances and she rejected him, and so he was just, very frustrated at that, and I guess his rage.
Yeah.
He couldn't contain it. And that's why I was like, well, if that was the case, like, was he sexually abusive to his wife? Was he violent to her? Was he, even verbally abusive? And I really couldn't find anything.
He probably is somehow. I don't know. That's a good thought, though. I didn't even, cross my mind.
Well, I mean, there's, tons of the transcripts of the court documents. And I was reading some of those, and it's just like,
right. It's a lot.
If I could listen to it, it's a lot better than.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That'll do it for this case. That was awesome. This is an awesome one to cover. Thank you. So if you can't get enough Operation Evil, consider supporting the podcast by joining Patreon or Operation Evil Plus on Buzzsprout. When you join, not only will you have access to exclusive bonus episodes, but you will also get a shout out. Operation Evil currently has 50 exclusive bonus episodes ready for you to binge on. The links to join can always be found in the show notes. If you can't join our Patreon or Operation Evil Plus on Buzzsprout, consider supporting us for free by rating our show, telling a friend about our podcast, or like and share our Facebook page. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'll be back next time with a new episode. Thanks again for joining me, Heather.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.